All right, everybody, we are back again for season 2 of the Coach's Compass. Again, don't know what episode it is because we just continue to roll, continue to bring on cool guests from all across the world. It's your boy, Coach Coop, reporting live. Coach Jay can't be with us tonight because he's got junior practice because he's still out in Hungary, time difference and everything, still trying to figure that out. But remember, hit that like, subscribe, comment button down below so we can continue to have this thing grow and continue to bring on cool guests from all over the world. Now, with us tonight, we got Coach Anthony. He is out of Southern Methodist University. He's the Assistant Director of Olympic Sports Performance. Coach Anthony, thank you. Welcome. And welcome to the Coach's Compass tonight, man. How are you doing?
Good, man. Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to chat about everything strength.
What is the position of Assistant Director of Olympic Sports Performance entitled? Like, what does it have in there? What sports are you with? I mean, obviously, if you watch the Olympics this summer, you got to see all the Olympic sports. But are all those sports that you work with, or is it more of like just kind of one sport at a time?
Yeah, honestly, it's a new position this year. Like from a title standpoint, I'm not new by any means, but so I oversee, like, my primary responsibility is volleyball, all things volleyball. And then I also oversee training for diving and then kind of assist as needed anywhere. And outside of that, it's just a title at the end of the day. So nothing really changes in that regard, just some like administrative duties. But yeah, it's kind of a new position as technically new, added to our department. We're a growing department, going into a new league. So adding some positions. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, you talk about going into a new league. I mean, if anybody knows, SMU was once part of the American Conference, and now you guys made that transition over to the ACC. What is that? You don't have to go into full depth of it, everything like that, but what has that change been like going into the ACC?
Honestly, it's been pretty good. Like from a volleyball perspective, we were really competitive to begin with, so it's kind of just going as normal for us, maybe a little more notoriety on a bigger public stage. But it's exciting because like we're getting new resources, we're expanding to meet just honestly the baseline for being a Power Four conference. So being a part of something that's honestly building from the ground up is super exciting to see when you have a ton of resources and support to kind of make things happen.
And you came from a smaller school, right, into SMU.
I came from a. Sorry, please.
Yeah, where'd you come from, and then what was it like with that switch over to going to higher level Division I, and what are the resources like for you?
Yes, I came from UMBC, University of Maryland, Baltimore County, out of the America East, the smallest Division I conference in all of America. But it was fun. Honestly, they were very well supported from a resource standpoint there. But you couldn't get as involved into like the day-to-day from a sports. I mean, I had 6 teams at once, down to like 4 when I left. And you're just training nonstop all day, which is honestly great. You just can't get really into the day-to-day with each individual sports that I think really makes a difference. And then honestly, coming here, honestly very seamless. I feel like transition just because like the head coach I work with for our volleyball program values the position a lot and kind of lets me do whatever I want in honestly any capacity. So it's been really seamless, honestly. It makes life easier when you have more resources, more people. So if anything, the transition's been way easier than you can ever expect.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked to a few coaches that are in the, strength and conditioning field, that whether on football or their basketball or whatever it may be. And then there's also that struggle or that knocking heads with a head coach that doesn't fully buy into, what you're trying to do as a strength and conditioning coach. How easy was that talk for you to have with the strength and conditioning coach of like what you like want to focus on and getting him to buy in so the girls buy in too?
Yeah, I think I was honestly really lucky. She's a first-time head coach. We got here at the same time. She came from a really good program in Baylor for a long time. So she knows what winning is, and like success leaves clues. She's going to take things that work for them and apply it here. And she saw the value of the position. And honestly, it's just the same thing she valued, I value. Yeah, I think it's a really unique sport in volleyball where I think the position can honestly have a big impact on winning and losing, more so than like some other sports like a basketball or even maybe a football, where like skill is a big player in a lot of that stuff. Where in like female volleyball, you can win a lot of matches just jumping higher than anybody else. You kind of see it at the highest level with your Texas and Nebraskas where they just out physical everybody. And so she sees that and she understands it. So she understands the value. And luckily, I kind of see it the same way. Honestly, it's just lucky. Like 9 times out of 10, that's not the case. And you kind of have to fight for some things. But very lucky where we're very alike in that area. So it's, again, I've 1 in a million chances. Super lucky, super seamless.
Luck is always a good thing to have.
Yeah.
It's on your side, right? But it was on somebody else's side. Sure. We don't love it. But you talk about being able to jump higher. It's a main thing for women's volleyball. How are you training your girls to jump higher? And what are they like when what are you doing to test them when they first come in to kind of see where they're at? And what are you basing it off of to see if they are jumping high enough or they've jumped higher? Obviously, you can do the vertimax, all that. But what are you, how are you training them?
Yeah, I think like from a assessment standpoint, obviously you got the Vertec, you like just gold standard for volleyball for some reason, 10 foot. Like if you can touch 10 foot, it's a big deal. And then we have force plates through Hawkins and Vald that we kind of use to assess like various qualities. And then we do more frequently, I think, just because of ease. But from like that specific test, one thing I value a lot is like the eccentric qualities, because I think it's like the biggest, lowest hanging fruit you can do from a training standpoint. Just because like traditional strength and conditioning is so concentric against gravity based, where the limiting factor is always a concentric contraction. So the eccentric typically gets undertrained, and it's honestly so much stronger than the concentric. And so for like jumping, I think it's honestly like 3 main factors for us. Like number one, body composition. We put a massive emphasis on body composition, just from like a health standpoint. Obviously, like the players into jumping high, and I like nutrition's a big player into that. And then the second is going to be like technique. Obviously, there's like a skill component in jumping, just like anything else that you need to practice. And there's various positions you need to be really efficient in. And then the third one, I think, is going back into training and the stretch shortening cycle, I think, is the biggest player. And when you think about like developing that, going back to the eccentric, the lowest hanging fruit, it's so undertrained. And honestly, when you can emphasize those qualities for an extended period of time, and get a super efficient stretch shortening cycle, and combined with those other 2 things, like being really efficient jumping and then just having your lifestyle factors in check from a body comp standpoint, if all 3 of those things come together, you'll jump higher. Like it's, so that's kind of the formula we follow. If we can check all those boxes, usually good things are happening.
Are you getting all 3 of those things to like align and mesh? And then, you get the athlete that, one side is falling off, but they're doing really good the other 2, or they're doing good at one of them, but the other like 2 out of them, they're not doing well at. How do you get them to, get into it and be like, hey, like I need you to do all 3 so you can perform at your highest level, and so we can go win games?
Yeah, I think like the training's easy because I'm in complete control of that aspect. But the other 2 you're not so much in. Like you get kids that maybe transferred or just have like bad habits from a technical standpoint. So when you're trying to like teach a kid like how an approach should be, like it takes time and it takes reps like any other skill or practice. And then honestly, the hardest one's always going to be like the lifestyle factors, body comp, kind of managing stress deal and understanding the importance. And it's also tough when you're working with females. Like it's a gray area to have some of those conversations. But what we do honestly is like just from a resource standpoint, is just honestly nutrition's tough to do on your own. So we supply you with all the food you can imagine. So you don't take the thinking and the effort out of it from a training stable standpoint, and then supplementation too. So honestly, it's really easy when we can control everything. Just like that, we'll control as much of the nutrition as we can by just supplying. And then obviously education's a big piece. And luckily like our coaching staff's on board big time with managing stressors and nutrition and valuing sleep and those things. So when it's aligned from the top down and you're continuing to get the same like message across every day from honestly the people you need to get it across from, usually it falls in line, honestly, like with the cliche kind of culture deal. So it's kind of like our team culture to really value those things. And if you don't, usually the kids will kind of take care of it.
I mean, you talked a little bit about like what it is like to train those female athletes. I mean, I know for myself, when I'm training my high school female girls, I'd much rather work with the female athletes than the males, right? Because the females come in and they just work. They put in that work. Like they're not really going to question much of what you say, right? They're not really going to talk back. They just kind of get to work. How has it been for you getting like them to also learn that lifting heavy is good for them? Because I mean, I look at some of your videos on Instagram and stuff, and you're telling like a lot of your athletes like squat, right? And you say squat heavy sometimes too, right? like, and you're
Yeah.
teaching some of these cycles, the eccentric stuff. How hard has it been to, because females, I mean, obviously you're in the D1 space, right? You're working with athletes that it's okay to get muscular and get bigger, to
Yeah,
do
for sure.
this, but there is still some of that dealing with the body image stuff that these female athletes have to deal
Yeah.
with. How is it to navigate that? Especially, I mean, do you have any kids?
No, not yet.
So
One day.
I have a daughter, right? So I'm also still trying to learn, like, those talks that you're
Yeah,
having with these female athletes. Like, it's okay,
for sure.
to be a little bit more on the muscular side. Like, it's still, because there's still a mental
Yeah.
aspect to it for them.
Yeah, it's tough. I think it's relative to the individual, so it's unique to each perspective. So again, going back to like from the top down, when we all align on the same vision, it allows us each to like handle conversations differently. Like I'm never gonna tell a kid she needs to lose a game weight. Like I will never. It's just not. Honestly, it's not my expertise. If that is a scenario, like we'll set them up with a professional that can have that conversation. But so again, we'll if that's the case, we'll have the experts get involved. But luckily enough, we haven't had that yet because I think just our message every day, like it gets across from the value of nutrition and just managing stressors, and just if you hammer on it every day, it just kind of becomes their norm. So it organically kind of takes care of itself. But I think early on, for us to kind of get to the point where honestly we don't have to worry about it so much, it's just kind of what we do, and it's kind of told honestly in the recruiting process is like how we do things. I think that early on we just had to get results and quantify the results, and luckily enough have like kids that really bought into our program early on and got great results. And now when we go through recruiting, it's like if you want to be like X kid, like this is what it took to get here. So I think honestly that's the biggest thing, just having kids that have been through it and get great results, and then you're able to quantify with some of the things you do within your program from like a nutrition and training standpoint. It makes it easy because they know what they're getting into when they come here. And like I said, my head coach does a great job of like really putting value on the position and like the nutrition and managing stress factors, or it's a big part of the recruiting process. Like where I'm like really involved in recruiting, maybe more so than most anybody in these kind of positions. Or like if kids aren't bought into this idea, like it's not going to be a good fit just because like we put such a big emphasis on it. So that makes it really easy. Like just don't recruit kids that aren't going to buy into this stuff.
Right.
But yeah, it's tough. It's unique. I'll always defer to the expert if we have to. I never want to cross that gray area. Luckily, we have a female athletic trainer and female coaches on our staff. So if that conversation needs to be had, they'll have it. But as a male, yeah, I'm never going to cross it. I've seen that go bad too many times.
It can go real bad, real bad.
Yeah.
But I mean, you talked about earlier that 10 foot like is the mark that they set for volleyball players.
Yeah.
What is it for you that you kind of set for your athletes? Like, are you saying like 10-2, 10-3, 10-5? Like, is that what you guys are aiming for?
Yeah.
Or is like 10 foot still like, all right, we're good where we're at?
Yeah, I think we've kind of started to push it towards 10-5 a little bit. I mean, that's relative. Like if you're 6'4", like yeah, it's not hard. But most of our kids, honestly, like for the positions that matter, your pins and your middles and maybe your setter. So usually your pins and our setter's big, around like 6 foot to 6'1", all kind of roughly the same height, same build. So for us, like for them, it's usually gonna be like 10-5. Like that's kind of the goal. And some kids is relative. We have freaky kids that are touching like 10-10. So now it's like, let's get to 11 feet. So it becomes very relative to the individual, but we do set like correlations sometimes within those like anthropometric sizes of like our 6 foot kids that touch 10-5 all have these like correlated qualities from a body comp standpoint. So again, like low hanging fruit, like if the goal is to touch 10-5, you have to check like these 3 boxes for body comp, because every kid we've ever had touch 10-5 that's 6 foot to 6'2" have all these same similarities in common from body comp. So we're starting to establish that. It's very like unique to us. I don't know what anybody else is doing in America, but for our small population, like anecdotally, that's kind of what we're doing. But honestly, genetics is obviously the biggest play into that. That kind of dictates your ceiling, and we'll see how close we can get to your ceiling. Like I said, for like some kids, like we had a freshman come in already touching like 10-4.5. So her ceiling is more like somewhere in the 11 something. So it's very unique. Like our setter, her best, she's about 6 foot. Her PR is like 10-3. So I think her ceiling is like 10-5. So relatively to their genetic potential, I think it's pretty pretty unique. But 10.5 is kind of like the standard average we're kind of looking for, I think, going forward.
What's the highest you've seen a girl touch, like, underneath your training?
That freshman, she's a freshman middle. She's like a middle blocker. She's undersized, so she's about 5'10". So when you're like undersized, usually like people at like the high level and that are middles are like 6'3", 6'4". So when you're undersized, you're probably stupid athletic, and she is. So she's a kid that came in touching 10.4.5, and her highest is 10.10. And so that's almost like, it was like a 39.5-inch approach vert. Like, this kid could dunk a basketball. If she was able to figure out the skill of dunking, she could easily dunk a basketball. So she's a kid, I think, like, maybe when she's a junior or senior, if all things go right, be like 11.3, 11.4, like just 1 in a million kind of kid. Great genetics. Her dad played football here, so that helps a lot.
Yeah. Genetically blessed, you would say.
Yes, exactly.
How are you dealing with, because the female body is different than the male body. How are you dealing with, I wouldn't say injury prevention, because injuries happen. That's just the nature of sports. But how are you, like, helping them get ready for the impacts that their body is about to go through?
Yeah, I think it kind of just, like, from a training standpoint, like, I don't think the training is it really. I think, honestly, it's managing your lifestyle factors is going to be the biggest play into your injury, like just mitigation. So how well do you manage stress? Like, college is stressful. How well do you manage it? So you can do that by obviously getting quality sleep, making sure you're hydrated, and like if your nutrition's in check, I think that's when the training starts to matter a little more in terms of mitigation. So like if a kid is like training well, but those other things aren't well, like I think they're going to be at a way higher risk than like a kid that's like not training well and like has everything else checked. So for us, again, we put such a big play in like the stress management and lifestyle factors. So we'll worry about that first. And then training wise, I don't really like get into like the female QLing like kind of thing. I honestly, I think that's a little bit outdated. I think our profession is a little notorious for being stuck in the Stone Ages with some things. And that's one of them. Honestly, I think just good training is hard training consistently, like year round. So for us, there's nothing like specific I'm doing. The only thing I really value is like training through 4 ranges of motion. I think we all kind of understand the importance there. And then for me, like I mentioned earlier, putting a massive value on the eccentric, especially in those lengthened positions. I think we kind of all understand the importance of like being strong in end ranges and how that plays into injury mitigation. So from a training standpoint, that's really it. Like we're more so at the point now where we're trying to drive performance, I think, more so in training and letting our lifestyle factors be like the player in our injury mitigation stuff.
What's it like hanging out with so many tall girls?
It's tough because I'm a small human. I'm like 5'9".
They would put their arm on your shoulder.
Yeah. So it's no, not yet. There's every now and then like we'll get into it and they'll kind of just look down on me. I'm like, yeah, you're right. You got it. But it's unique. Like luckily I've come from working with basketball most all my career. So I'm kind of just used to it. Like I'm 5'9", but I feel like I'm 6'9", you know? But
Now
I'm
before we
definitely
get out of
looking
here,
up.
Coach, we got a question one from one of our former guests that have been on, and then we got a question for you that you can ask our next guest to come on. Right? So if you were to go to dinner,
Of course,
and you had to pick 3 guests, who would you choose? And it can be anybody.
3 guests to go to dinner with. Brother, man.
Okay.
Man, gotta be Kobe because the Mamba mentality. I think it's so unique how he just approached like his lifestyle and training mentalities on a different level. I'm trying to think of like some kind of like scholar, businessman or something. Maybe like Albert Einstein. Like I find a lot of value in professions outside of our own and applying it to our own. So I think like the smartest people in the world have something figured out and should probably take something from them. I think obviously he's one of them. Maybe like Jeff Bezos, just from a business perspective. Same idea, like the most successful businessman ever. Like what are you doing right? What's unique and how can I apply it? So yeah, I think those are all from a perspective of probably like the most different mentality in Kobe to one of the smartest humans ever and one of the most successful businessmen. Take a little bit from all of
I
them and
love
try
it.
to
I
apply
love
it
it.
in
So
my
for our
little life.
next guest coming on, what's one question you would like us to ask them?
Oh man, putting me on the spot here. I'm gonna keep it like really like lame. I'm not even gonna lie to you. But
Is a hot
is a hot
dog a
dog a sandwich?
sandwich? I like that one. That is a very trick one. What would you say?
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. I would say it's a sandwich for sure. It's between two pieces of
I
bread.
mean,
Why not? What else
I've
is it?
never really thought about it. I've never like thought about the sandwich category of a hot dog. But I mean, I've lived overseas in Denmark where they consider
Yeah.
sandwiches that don't even have a lid on. And so I guess there's different varieties.
Mm. That's one of those ones like you're with your boys and you
Right.
bring
And
up
it's
and
going
then
on,
you're
it's
just
leading all the way
arguing
to
about for
practice,
like
right?
45
You're still
minutes.
arguing
So
about that before and after practice. But
yeah,
Coach, I appreciate
exactly.
you jumping on today.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for your time. A lot of knowledge, especially for a lot of people in the college space,
Yeah,
learning
man,
what
of
you guys
course.
got going on and what you're going through. So thank you. We appreciate you and can't wait to drop this episode. For sure.
Of course. Thanks for having me.